This is a special report from WBRN Radio. This is a special report from WBRN Radio and on the Boston Red Network. Mohamed Noor found guilty of murdering Justine Damond in the Midwest city of Minneapolis. He was found guilty. The verdict was read about 17:25 Central Standard Time in the court, and he was then led away by police officers. This is from the Associated Press. A Minneapolis police officer was handcuffed and taken into custody immediately after being convicted of murder in the fatal shooting of Justine Ruszczyk Damond, 40, a dual U.S. and Australian citizen, had called the police to report a possible sexual assault in the alley behind her home. Noor's attorney asked that he be freed on bond pending sentencing on the 7th of June 2019. But the prosecution opposed it on the grounds of the seriousness of the case, and Hennepin County Sheriff said it had concerns about Noor's safety if he was freed. He was, of course, fired after the charge. He had been convicted of murder in the fatal shooting of an unarmed woman in Minneapolis who approached his squad car. Noor testified that a loud bang on his squad car made him fearful, and he fired when he saw a woman appear who was raising her arms. Prosecution attacked Moore for shooting without seeing a weapon or Damond's hands, and questioned whether the loud bang was real. And that was one of the contention throughout the trial, was that made-up testimony. Evidently the jury of 10 men and 2 women, they received the case on Monday afternoon after 3 weeks of testimony. He was, of course, this Mohamed Noor was fired after he was charged. And according to the AP, the juries resumed deliberations on Tuesday in the trial, and they just go ahead to state this is from the Associated Press. And from the local newspaper, the Star Tribune, big headline: Noor guilty of third-degree murder and manslaughter in the killing of Justine Ruszczyk Damond. Had been found guilty of third-degree murder, second-degree manslaughter. In that particular sentence, he was acquitted on second-degree murder. He sat expressionless with his hands clasped in front of him as the verdict was read, while jurors remained calm. Although one hung his head, Noor was immediately handcuffed and taken into custody. Sentencing will be on the 7th of June 2019 at 9 a.m. The defense attorney, Pluckett, argued that he should remain free pending sentences. Noor has conducted himself professionally and honorably throughout the entire case. The judge, Quinson, denied the request, and of course Noor was taken away. He's the first Minneapolis police officer in recent history to be convicted of murder and manslaughter in connection with an on-duty shooting. He faces from 10 to 15 years for third-degree murder and 3 to 5 years for manslaughter. He is 33 years old, and he was originally charged with second-degree murder, third-degree murder, and second-degree manslaughter. And to be convicted, the prosecution had to prove his intent and a negligent intent at that. A little hard to understand, but because of the tenure of the trial, the blue code of silence, the mishandling of evidence, the apparent favoritism by the state investigative unit, the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, which investigates all of these cases. And so what it happens, it brings to serious doubt of the other cases here. Noor is the second officer in recent Minnesota history to be charged with an on-duty fatal shooting. There was one other officer named Geronimo Yasneen was acquitted in 2017 that was fatally killing an African-American named Philando Castile during a traffic stop. But he literally executed Philando Castile and got away with it. But this is not 2017, this is 2018, and it will rock the nation. From the Minnesota Public Radio, basically the same here from Noor found guilty on 2 counts, third-degree murder and second-degree manslaughter. He was found not guilty on second-degree intentional murder, and of course they removed him from the courtroom in handcuffs. As the parents of Justine Damond watched there, and Noor's wife cried. So that is the story. It is very early, and we don't have all the information at this point in time. We'll have further updates on this case here at WBRN Radio on the Boston Red Network. We also have special May Day programming on May 1st. That's the International Workers' Holiday. Some other news comes out of Venezuela. There was another installment in the long-running attempted coup against Nicolas Maduro. This time it was sparked at a military base that is partially not used. Some misinformed military types were led to believe they were doing one thing, and they were not doing that, by some lower level. A military officer, Juan Guaido himself, came to speak to a very small crowd of people in the early morning hours. Order was restored there in Venezuela. Let me just quickly go to this story. It's from several. This would come from National Public Radio. It shows some people here out demonstrating in Venezuela. This is updated at 2:30 Eastern Time. They have started what they call the final stage. They have called this is the opposition for mass demonstrations on a May Day. In early Tuesday morning, Guaido released a 3-minute video from an Air Force base east of Caracas known as Ricardo Lada. Is described as a people's fight there. He stood near the opposition leader Leopoldo Lopez, a politician who had been on the house arrest. Lopez is now in the Chilean embassy in Caracas. He's asked for political asylum, so he's slipping out of the country, quite literally. Motorcycle units from the Venezuelan National Guard closed its gate. People appeared tear-gassed at the gate, and they were basically chased away. Journalists on the ground hearing the echo of gunfire, tear gas, canisters, as well as seeing Molotov cocktails. That's pretty much a common tactic of the opposition there. And an armored car that was also replayed from the, if you recall, the so-called humanitarian food deliveries, that an armored car had been stolen and went into the crowd of people. So the opposition is using, what are they using? Bracelets and blue scarves. There are not very many blue scarves out there. And this is supposedly the beginning of what is going on. The moment for those military officers, this is in Venezuela, to fulfill their constitutional hope. This is from Marco Vegas Rubio. The telecommunication agency in Venezuela, Radio Caracas, to stop broadcasting after decades of continuous airtime. It announced it turned to this is, I guess, to YouTube. They're on YouTube. Anyway, this is the story so far that we have on Venezuela. Our other big story of the hour here, again, Mohamed Noor, former Minneapolis police officer, found guilty in the city of Minneapolis on 2 counts: third-degree murder and manslaughter in the murder of Justine Damond. Stay tuned for other programming from WBRN Radio. This is a Boston Red and the Jerry Pippin broadcast booth here, and we shall return later with other special programming. Good day.